Now, he's been described as an exemplary individual for attempting to introduce the world to the beautiful sounds of Somali music. Aar Maanta's efforts have already won him a huge following that's set to get even bigger when he performs at October's Africa Day celebrations in London's Trafalgar Square. Well, Aar has studied music all his life. With his family being given their way, he might have ended up as a scientist. And he joins me now in the studio. Very good morning to you.
Thank you.
Which branch of science were you studying?
I actually did sports science, so mostly physiology, anatomy, and things to do with the body.
Right, so you could have been in the world of sport rather than the world of music.
Yeah, so it wasn't as bad as being in a laboratory.
Because I mean, some musicians feel that there is a fusion between science and music, but I guess that depends on which branch of science you study.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very different to music is, to what I was doing as a sports scientist, learning about anatomy and the heart and how physiology and the respiratory systems and all that kind of stuff, is completely different.
But it sounds a bit as if there's the parental pressure there, because there are so many musicians from ethnic minority backgrounds who say that when they wanted to be musicians, there was a lot of pressure from parents saying, oh my gosh, that's not a proper job. So some of them dropped out of it completely, or they did the so-called proper job for a while and then they went back to music. Initially,
I was doing a degree in music. After the first year, there was so many. I used to get calls from some relatives, even I haven't heard of forever. I can't believe you're wasting your degree on music. It's your only chance. Now you have to do something really beneficial for you, your community, and your family. Why don't you just do something that you have to find something else that you enjoy. How about think something to do with sports? Why don't you be a sports scientist? Go and learn about physiology. And I did that in the end, and I managed to actually get a good degree and make my family members quite happy. But eventually, I had to come back to music because that's where my passion was. Yeah, and you've always been surrounded by it. You've grown up with music. You've been performing music for a long time. Somalis are known for their poetry, and they love music as well, which is quite strange. They actually love, before the war of the early 1990s, there were many bands that were really popular with my immediate family, and people love listening to these songs. Yet they don't want their children or their family members being being part of music. So it's quite a little bit of contradiction. But I'm slowly winning over members of my family, especially my mother, who I respect.
Which is fantastic. I mean, the thing is, you've built up a huge following. People listening to your music, not just Somalis, but also other nationalities as well. But I mean, if you had to describe it, you've got the purity of the Somali tradition, but there are also other elements that you've managed to fuse onto this. What are they?
With Somali singing, the songs have to be, you have to honor, there's a time-honored way of writing Somali songs. If you begin a song with S, then you have to continue starting with that. And then it still has to rhyme. So I still follow that time-honored tradition. But in terms of music, I have so many influences. Most of my life I've lived in London, so musically, whatever influenced me around in the UK, in the West, I bring that element musically into it. But lyrically, it has to stay the Somali tradition, because if you try and introduce something else, people, back in Horn of Africa, or even the Somalis in the West, they will not take it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, who is your music written and performed for? Is it largely for the Somali audience, or do you want to be global with it, to reach out to everybody?
Initially, it was mostly for Somali audience, but I took part this year, WOMAD Festival, and that's for the wider audience, and the reaction has been quite positive. So the music I was making before was more digital, because that's what Somali audiences, or mostly African audiences, tend to prefer. But the wider audience, or people who like African music who are not necessarily African tend to like live music. So that's what I'm trying to introduce in my next project. I'm actually going to record a new album soon, and that's going to be live music. So I want to try and, please, the wider audience as well.
So it's one to look out for. Now, you mentioned WOMAD, but you've also performed it in Minneapolis. But I know that you've had some pretty negative experiences there, which you've tried to tackle through your music. I mean, what's happened?
What happened was Somalis tend to travel quite a lot because there's a big Somali community outside of Horn of Africa. So people are always traveling, visiting their families and so on. And because of that, they're targeted for whatever reason because of security issues. And I had a visa issue before where we were accepted to go and perform in Minneapolis. But unfortunately, even though I was the band leader, my visa was kind of like refused, even though, the other members of my band who are not Somalis were actually accepted. So it kind of like did make sense from that point of view. But it's not just America. The issue is also the UK. Every time I used to come back, traveling from wherever, even as as close as other European destinations, UK border agencies used to like really interrogate me, sometimes keeping me for like hours.
Sure.
I'm a British citizen, and it's quite strange that you actually treat it like that. So there's one video that you've actually showed a little bit earlier.
That's right.
Where I reenacted exactly how it happened and what tends to happen. So.
But certainly it's been tackled in music, and hopefully people will get the message of what you're doing and also get into this music, because it really is quite stunning.
Thank you.
It's beautiful to listen to. Sadly, time goes against us, but thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Good luck, and we'll look out for you on the Africa Day celebrations.
Thank you.
Thank you.